welcome back to another episode of Public Opinion with your host, Pam and Vanetta. Hey, Vanetta.
Hello.
Vanetta is coming off of a birthday. She is a 4th of July baby.
Yes.
So this is why
I had a great birthday this year.
you?
Yes, it was quiet, and especially coming back from Las Vegas, it was just what I needed. So my children came and my daughter-in-law, and we had a nice time in our backyard.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Yes, and we're coming back from a vacation. We said all the vacations that we were doing, and we did our vacation together to Vegas. Yes. We had a wonderful, it was hot. It was hot
as Hades.
Yes, we went to see Usher. We went to breakfast. I did the buffet at the Wynn. I would recommend
that was an experience.
Oh my goodness. I enjoyed. I sat for 2.5 hours. You know how we do when we used to go to the buffet.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm gonna let this settle. And I'm gonna top it all. I ate everything that I'm not supposed to eat because I'm not supposed to eat shellfish. I had crab legs. I had cold crab legs. I had hot crab legs. I even had caviar. They had a caviar
that's stepping out there.
Bar. I tried 5. It was 5 different I didn't even know I liked caviar. I was tearing it up, putting it on crackers. So it was wonderful. I
exposed yourself.
I exposed myself, but I am enjoying the summer, and that's something that's kind of going into our topic, because in the summer the kids are out from school. A lot of times some kids who are children of divorced parents or separated parents or parents who were never married, they may be going, or spending the summer with one of those parents. And, it's
commonplace.
It's about parents trying to navigate the waters of co-parenting, shared parenting, and that type of thing. So that's what we're going to be talking about this week on the show is about, co-parenting and how to properly navigate that. A very good topic, I believe. So we have some exciting people. We have a person who is a friend of the show. We also have a regular, and then we have a person who is a clinical psychologist. So let's get started and meet our guests this week. First, we have Dr. Don Gordon. Dr. Gordon is the executive director for the Center for Divorce Education. He is a clinical child psychologist who develops programs to educate parents about children's needs and healthy adjustment. He developed a program that's being utilized in the Cuyahoga County Domestic Relations Court, and it is called Children in Between. Next, we have a regular to this show, and that is Judy Jackson Winston. We have had Judy on the show several times. Judy has been on as the author of 2 books, The Anniversary and The Commemoration. She has been on our show several times when we have talked about mental health. She's been on the show when we talked about sickle cell. And now she is on the show as a magistrate at the Domestic Relations Court of Cuyahoga County. She serves as a magistrate under the Honorable Tanya R. Jones, who is the first African-American judge to ever be elected to the Cuyahoga County Domestic Relations Court. And Judy serves as a post-decree magistrate. And so she handles a lot of custody issues. And then finally, we have a friend of the show, and that is Charlie Winbush. Charlie is going to be on here as a person who is actually going through a divorce. And so she's has some questions about how to properly navigate that. And we hope that she learns a lot from being on the show. So let's get started and meet our guests. Well, welcome. Thank you all so very much for agreeing to be participants on the show this week. Like I stated before, we have 2 regulars on the show. We have a friend of the show, and Charlie is here, and who is a very good friend of my daughter. And then we have a magistrate, for the purposes of today's show, Magistrate Judy Winston, and we have Dr. Don Gordon. So thank you all so very much for agreeing to be on the show. I hope that we'll be able to impart a lot of wisdom and education to people who are interested in finding out a little bit more what it's like and how important it is to really cooperate when you are either separated or divorced and you have a child, because we all have to keep in mind that everything has to be done in the best interest of the child. So thank you all so very much. And this wouldn't be public opinion if we did not have a public opinion question of the week. So I am going to show you all the question, have you all answer it, and then we will have a panel discussion. So let's see what the question is. What are the best strategies to utilize for divorced, separated, or never married parents to effectively co-parent? All right, so I am going to give Dr. Don Gordon 2 minutes first to answer the question. So go ahead.
Okay. I think probably the single best strategy to effectively co-parent, which will hold down the conflict, is to be aware of when you're being triggered, when you're going into the fight or flight mode. And a lot of times your body will tip you off with muscle tension. And once you're aware that you're going into the fight or flight mode, you can take steps to prevent that by simple things such as taking several deep breaths, thinking about good memories, thinking about the fact that your children need you to cooperate. And then once you're able to keep yourself from going into fight or flight, then you can listen to the other parent. You can use good communication skills with the other parent and make them want to listen to you. And you can prevent yourself from escalating and attacking the other parent. So that's what's most stressful for children when their parents are in the fight or flight mode. Their amygdala is activated and they get highly stressed. And during that time, they're incapable of feeling the distress of their children. They're incapable of empathizing with their children. It's like their children are not there. They're physically not capable. So they have to get out of that brain mode before they can attune to their children's feelings. If they can attune to their children's feelings, then they're going to be pretty motivated to cooperate with their co-parent.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. I can't wait to talk about that. Oh, and were you done? I hope I didn't cut you off, but
no, I'm a former professor. I can talk all night.
Okay, but I'm gonna let you talk, but I'm gonna come back to that because
Okay.
I have so much agreement with you on that. But Judy, I'm gonna give you 2 minutes to answer that. Go ahead.
I believe that what we need to stress upon parents is that no matter what, they're always going to be family. You're going to be family forever with this person if you have children, and that's just it. So at the end of the day, you might, have a difficult time when you guys first break up, but at the end of the day, you got to do what's in the best interest of the children. And when kids are around all of that trauma, all of that stress, it has a very negative impact on their mental health, and it adversely affects them. So you have to try to put yourself in a position to think about your kids, because if you don't, then what you do is you spend a lot of time, you spend a lot of money that you could be spending on your kids in court, and then you let people like me and you, Magistrate Morton, make decisions for you and your kids. I don't know you or your kids, but I'm gonna do my very best because this is what I get paid to do. And I'm gonna think about your kids as best I can. I mean, not knowing them, it'd be much better if you did what was best for them. And at the end of the day, people who are married sometimes don't agree with their spouse. And what we do is we find a middle ground. And it's important to teach our children good conflict resolution skills. I really do believe that because a lot of our children don't have those skills, that's why we're seeing such strife in the world right now. We have to teach our children how to get along with people and sometimes not agree with them, but do what's in the better interest of, our community. And we got to teach our kids that. And that starts at home.
All right, great. No, those are, I love it. Those are two very, very good points. And again, before we go into our whole panel discussion, I do want to state again to the audience what I do. I know most of the shows are not centered around what I do on my day job, but I am a magistrate in Cuyahoga County Juvenile Court. I hear cases that are brought by Children and Family Services. However, I used to do private custody cases a lot. And I agree with you, Judy, when you said, ultimately, I don't know these kids. I don't know you. I don't know anything about your family, but yet and still you all want to put this most important person that you all know in my hands. And I always tell people it's much better if you can come to your own agreements, because you all know what you're dealing with. You all know family dynamics. You all know all of that so much better. So I'm grateful that you said that. And Dr. Gordon, can you just explain to the audience again what it is you do as the executive director of the Center for, again, it's called Center for Divorcing Families, is that it?
Divorce education.
Divorce
Yeah.
education. Go ahead.
I'm a child clinical psychologist, and I've developed some parenting programs that teach parents how to do a better job parenting, to either reduce their children's mental health problems and behavior problems, or when they're divorcing, to be able to learn skills that help them communicate better and not trigger the other parent. And then they're able to talk more rationally and cooperate. So I'm focused on teaching parents how to take the strong emotion out of their conversations, because it gets in the way of them being aware of their children's needs. So, and I run this company, and I got a bunch of employees, and they market this Children in Between program that I've developed around the country and to other countries. So that's what I do. But my primary interest is developing the programs and then revising them and improving them.
Okay. And the Children in Between programs address what specifically?
It teaches parents skills to communicate more respectfully, like active listening, where they can listen without too much judgment to what the other parent's saying, reflecting back so the other parent knows they're being heard and being seen. It teaches them I messages so they can state when they're upset with the other parent, they can state their feelings about what the parent's doing instead of blaming them or attacking them. We teach them how to stop, look, and listen, how to stop the conflict, how to look around for their alternatives, and to listen to their better nature so they can communicate better. So the main emphasis of the program is teaching skills that they can use, and they can actually use it in their daily lives with their friends, with their employers, with their supervisors, as well as their children and their co-parent. So these are general skills that people find useful, and we teach this with video, where parents are watching parents make mistakes and then using the skills and doing better. And parents learn a lot better by watching somebody demonstrate it than simply by hearing somebody talk about it.
Right. And Judy, you are familiar with that program, because I know in Cuyahoga County Domestic Relations Court, that's a requirement that parents go through this program that have children.
It's not necessary. Right. It doesn't have to be more than one program, but you have to go through a parenting program before you can get a divorce if you have children.
Okay.
And we are not even allowed. I deal with the post-degree docket, but I just want to say, for the Honorable Tanya R. Jones, first African-American judge in the history of domestic relations court, I am her post-decree magistrate. And we can't even give parenting time if a parent hasn't completed that program.
Yeah. And I think that's important. I wish that they would do that in juvenile court, because even though people are not going through a divorce, they still, their relationship has ended, and they still have these children that they have to co-parent. Now, Charlie, you are fresh into this, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on here, so that you could add your perspective as someone who's going through this. And just having listened now to Dr. Gordon, do you think that some of the things he said would be helpful in your process?
Oh, absolutely. I think so much of this is a matter of communication between two parents, and having skills around active listening, having skills around mitigating your triggers, and learning to diffuse and de-escalate situations is, I mean, it's essential. Like, you know, I mean, if you don't have those tools, you're gonna suffer. And the suffering of parents directly impacts the lives of children, as Magistrate Judy was saying as well. So yeah, no, I mean, everything that he was saying, I mean, everything, all of the input given so far is exactly what I've seen going through this process myself. It's an extremely taxing process. It's very emotionally stressful. It's very anxiety inducing. And so I think the best way to mitigate you know, that is through everything that's been said so far, just trying your best to handle matters outside of the court. I can say, even within my own situation, we didn't really need to go to court. I think that we had a decent enough rapport and relationship, even in frustration, even in anger, to be able to manage this outside of the judicial system. But now what I've seen is actually the part of our family that was more of a proponent of going to court is actually kind of encountering difficulty on account of the orders that he requested be set. So I definitely think it's definitely important to try to, you know, diffuse and handle these matters personally. You know, these are your children, this is your life, you know your child and your family structure and dynamic the best. And as long as everybody is working in best interest of the child, you really can't go wrong.
Right. And that's what we always try to stress, is best interest of the child. Now, Vanetta, what they were saying is the stop, look, and listen. I think that would be helpful for any kind of in my marriage right now. I'm like, I was saying to myself, I need to start utilizing some of this stuff, because I think anything that you can diffuse a problem.
Right. I thought what Don said that was really helpful to me is that listen to your body cues. You can feel it coming on. And that's absolutely true in any scenario about emotions. And I will tell you, as a product of divorce, a child of divorce, I wish there had been a program, 40, 50 years ago, that looked at me. Yeah, a little bit more. Okay. That looked at me as a part of the process versus just a result of the marriage. And because no one had conversations like this back then. No one thought that this affects me. And in my case, it was a major shift in my life. We moved 3,000 miles away from my parent, the other parent. Then we started to live in a circumstance that was less than. You know, I came from a home, and now was in a home with other children. And it would have been great to just have some dialogue about that. So I thank you all for making the decisions to take consideration of children. And Charlie, I would say to you, when I look back on the situation, I wish I had been a younger child. To grow up knowing what to expect, I think is far better. Now, there may be those who disagree, but I felt like things were ripped away from me. Your baby will know how to move through this process, I believe, so much easier. Heaven will have a clear understanding.
Yeah, I agree. That was a huge part of the decision of the timing of my divorce. Concerning, you know, I had done a bit of research ahead of time, and I realized that under the age of 3 is the best time. If there's ever a good time to do something like this, the best thing to do is under the age of 3, because they're a lot more adaptable. And it's a bit less traumatic, you know, when they're coming into understanding and you're already established into a way of life and a routine. It's just the new normal, you know, it's what it's always been. And also myself being a child of divorce that happened exactly at age 3, I had a little bit more cognition, and I know that did contribute to a bit of trauma personally. So, now, of course, not as much as I'm sure it would have been if I would have witnessed my parents arguing all the time, knock down, drag out, you know what I mean? So you got to weigh the lesser of the two evils. But yeah, it's definitely, I think this was the best decision, doing it within this time frame and doing our best to establish some sense of normalcy before she is completely able to perceive what's going on and all the changes happening around her.
Yeah. And
I just want to.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just want to say, you know, what's so funny, Vanetta, when you talk about your experience, back in your day, kids didn't have as much say as they have now. Children now have a lot of say. They tell us the things that they want. My problem sometimes with parents is that when it's coming to these things, then they go, that's not what they want, but when you say, no, you can't do this, you expect your child to do it. Like, you have to be a parent, because sometimes your kids are going to want things that are not in their best interest.
Right.
Yeah.
And it is our job as parents to say, no, this is what we're doing. And so, but what we didn't do back in the day that we do better now is we listen to our kids. We give them an opportunity to express themselves. And I think that is very, very important.
I do too. I agree with you totally. Because if the truth be told, I think I may have just overheard that my parents were getting a divorce. No one ever sat me down and had an explanation for this. And I honestly, like I said, I moved from California, where you are, Charlie, back to Michigan. I viewed it more like, wow, a vacation. I get to go see snow. And then I was like, this is a long damn vacation. We were there.
That is. Now, one thing what I noticed when I was doing a private custody, and Dr. Gordon, if you could speak to this, I found that a lot of parents want to use their children as weapons, and almost as if they're holding them hostage. In my situations, it would be mothers who wouldn't want the fathers to have visitation if they weren't paying their child support, or so it became almost like, okay, if you do this, you can do that. Or if you start dating, and a lot of people get upset about they're dating somebody else, then I'm not going to let you, so what do you think, or do you all speak to that in your program about not weaponizing your children against or pitting them against either parent?
Yeah, we do that. We hit that heavily. There's 4 major ways in which children and parents involve their children in the conflict by putting them in the middle. And most of the time, parents are not aware they're doing this, like asking the child to carry messages to the other parent so they don't have to talk to the other parent. Well, a lot of times those are loaded messages, and it really stresses the child out. Another way is criticizing the other parent to the child. And since the kid identifies with both parents, that the child applies that criticism to themselves. Another way is complaining about the way the other parent spends money. So those are things that people do unintentionally. And once you show video scenes of parents doing that, parents realize they've been doing that, and they stop doing it less often. So we kind of try to nip it in the bud before they get truly weaponized by having them not involve them in the middle of conflict. And if in our high conflict program, we really point out that if you're really trying to alienate the child from the other parent, it's going to be lifelong trauma for that child, and it's going to end up, hurting the whole family tremendously. And as you mentioned, a lot of times that starts happening when the other parent starts dating, and they don't want their children being around that new person, particularly when that new person's spending the night. And so that you'll see a lot of people go back, even though they may have had an uncontested divorce with a dissolution, they'll go back to court when the other parent starts dating. So that's another, people get, very upset when the other parent's, showing interest in something else.
Yes, especially if because I know I have seen written into decrees, they are not to call anybody dad, daddy, father, pop, and they have all these names that they are not to call them because they don't want another person to be to take over the role of a father or a mom or something of that nature. But so there's a lot of things. I would imagine your classes or whatever you're teaching is probably very interesting. Matter of fact, I would like to look at them, because it would be helpful for me to convey that, if I have situations like that, because they do that. And I had a case once where the boy was saying he didn't want to go and visit the father. And so when I had an in camera, that's for people that don't know, is when I speak to the child, alone. I asked him, I said, well, is your father doing something? What's wrong? Why don't you want to visit? And he finally said, well, I don't want to make my mom mad, because if I have fun with my dad, then I think that my mom would get sad, or because my mom doesn't like my dad, and
Yeah.
The mom was doing just like what you said. She was talking about the father in the presence of the child. So he was kind of picking up on, I don't want to make my mom feel like I like my dad better than her, rather than just understanding it's important for him to have a relationship with both of his parents. So I think parents have to be mindful, like you said, about what they say in the presence of their children, or even if their child is home, and if they think the child is not in the room, children, often can come and listen. And I know my parents did not get a divorce until I graduated from high school. However, they lived separately in the same home, which to me was more harmful than if they had just gone on ahead and got a divorce, because my mother had her own phone and she slept in the room with me and my sister. It was just a mess. And so, and I remember they did it because I got all upset when they first broached the topic of getting a divorce. I was like, oh no, what am I going to do? My father is the protector of the home. If he leaves, what's going to happen? And that, to me, now looking back, was so much worse than if they had gone on ahead, Charlie, like you said, maybe at an earlier age, and then that way I could have gotten used to it. And then in the end, he still was using things to get back at my mom. So it's just, it can be a mess if people don't approach it right from the beginning, with a full understanding of the way that they should be acting.
And if I could just add one last comment before, I know we're getting ready to be done, but I've had several cases where people have died.
Where people have what?
Died. And then you leave that child with a parent that child doesn't have a relationship with, because you did all these things to destroy it. And that also hurts your kids. I see that too. We need to understand that, when you have a family, it's balanced. One person could, pass away. What's going to happen to your kids if they don't have that relationship?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's true. Charlie, do you have any questions for Dr. Gordon or for Magistrate Winston?
I actually do. One of those being, do you think that we will get to a point in society where therapy, individually for both parents and the child in question, will become more commonplace, mandated by the court? I just personally feel like so many of these issues begin from insecurity within us as parents. We project our fears onto one another. We develop severe paranoia that the other parent is out to get us. And we begin to behave from this kind of like rabid place of just anxiety and fear mongering, and we're letting people speak to us about what they think the other person is capable of, and poisoning us against these people that we've procreated with. And then you have to deal with the ramifications of that, and then ultimately your child first and foremost has to deal with the ramifications of that. I just feel like so much of this could be mitigated by both parents being mandated to go to therapy. Personally,
I agree with that, and I think courts are going to do that more often, because there's more people who have serious mental health issues that are going to court, independent of the divorce, and they're going to do that. Unfortunately, we have nowhere near enough therapists to meet current demand, and every therapist I know is booked up. They don't have room for any new clients. So until there's money to pay for graduate programs and social work and psychology to turn out a lot more therapists, I mean a lot more, it won't do any good if the court's mandating it and people can't find a therapist.
Well, I just wanted to give a little plug for my judges program, Families First. Just for your audience, I am a licensed independent social worker, and I'm also with supervisory designation as well. And my judge is also a licensed social worker. And what she did was start a program in the court, the first in our state, second in our country, where we offer mental health and drug and alcohol treatment for our litigants. But it's a voluntary program. And we pay for a lot of what they need. We do use insurance, but if they don't have insurance, then we pay for it. And it's our goal not to keep the parents together, but it's our goal to give parents who are having the issue an opportunity to get healthy so that they can have positive parenting time. And that's our goal. We have to understand we all have to put into these kids if we want to get something out of them. And we got to share them. Got to share them.
Right.
Totally. Yeah.
Excellent. Excellent.
That is an excellent program, the Families First. And I agree. And I think once again, mental health is such a big issue in our country. And I keep reiterating the fact that it's something that should begin when you go to regular doctor visits as a child. You should have, to me, regular mental health. And that way you can take away the stigma that's so much associated with mental health. And it would just become normal. Like you said, I think that should be a regular part of the program, as much as going to having to do the parenting. I think you also should go, because that's trauma. You know, when you have a relationship that you thought, or you made vows that you thought was going to be forever, and then when that ends, and then you still have to have this relationship with this person because you have this child, you know, that to me does require some therapy, unless you just really have a good head on your shoulders. That's a lot to deal with. And like
even if you do,
and
even if you
children
do,
are
Even
gonna
if you
take it.
do, I agree. I agree. I think, honestly, I really wish, and my biggest desire, just from speaking, because clearly this is an intimate matter, you know, to be going through, but I just hope that we can destigmatize mental health. It is just as much an essential part of the human experience as tending to your physical health, as taking care of yourself, as grooming yourself. You know, moral hygiene is a thing. You know what I mean?
And now that is the
Mental
truth. I
upkeep,
get a
love
shirt that say
you know,
that.
mental health
More
upkeep.
like
It's a
I
thing. I
love
think
that mental hygiene.
you know, it's real. It's real,
Yeah,
you know,
it is.
and I just feel like we would have less divorces and we would have cleaner ones. You know what I mean? If everyone could just honestly take away this idea that you need to be crazy to need therapy.
Yes.
The human experience is deeply traumatic at a baseline. I mean, economically, socially, it is a very traumatic experience to just be human, and the world is continuously almost devolving in ways, and things are becoming more hostile. You know, we're dealing with school shootings and you know, mass murders and pandemics. You know what I mean? I think that prioritizing mental health is the beginning of a better world, so to speak. And definitely for us as parents, I believe it should even be, and this is going to sound very like extreme, but I think even to procreate, you should be required to
Like
seek
some of my
mental
workers.
You know what I mean?
From the Atlas board. Okay.
Yeah. No,
You know?
I agree with you. I think people should take parenting classes before they have their baby. You know, like a lot of time before you get married, you go to these marriage things with the pastor or whatever. I think that you should have to go through like a parenting class. But yeah, you're right. Even in divorce situations and in custody cases, a lot of times the way we determine whether who's going to get custody, we look to, well, does that person have a mental health issue, or, you know, because we don't really have anything else. Because as far as I'm concerned, both parents you should have shared parenting. That should be what you should get, and then take away if there's anything else. I think you should start with shared parenting, and the only way you don't have it is if maybe there are some severe issues that are going on with either one of the parents. But we are coming down to the end of our time, but I do want to ask if you all have anything you want to say by way of parting. Judy or Dr. Gordon, you have anything you want to say before we end?
I just hope that people watch this and that they realize that, you know, you said you hope that we can do something about mental health. We can. And it starts with us. And then it starts with our children. And remember that commercial? You tell a friend, go tell 2 friends, go tell 4 friends, go tell 8 friends. And that's what we need to continue to do, is to stress what we want in our world. And we start at home.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd say, as you said, being human is really hard. It's very it's traumatic. It's stressful. We're particularly going through a separation or divorce, which is the second most stressful life event.
It
Mm.
is.
We have to be kind to ourselves. We have to take care of ourselves to help us get through this horrible experience, and to get good sleep, eat well, get exercise, do things to relax yourself, have fun. It's really important to take good care of yourself during this time because it's a severe assault on your mental health.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes. Well, thank you so much and good luck, Charlie. I hope that you can take away some things that have been said and will be helpful to you. And Vanetta, thank you so much for your input. And I know you've often told me about your parents and the divorce, but even as a person that's approaching 60, I still have some triggers and things that I remember from my childhood too. So it's just so important to really get a good handle if you're going through this, to make sure that you are keeping the best interest of your child first and foremost. Do not weaponize your children. And thank you all so very, very much. I appreciate that. Oh, I thought that was a great show, Vanetta.
With a great
thought that-
purpose. I really
Yes.
do think that show will help a lot of people. The doctor was extremely good.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he gave information that I think, like you said, can use in your everyday life.
Yeah, I think that what he said, stop, look, and listen.
Yeah.
And that's true. You have to get a hold of yourself. You can't let your emotions take over to the point that it's interfering with what's in the best interest of the child. And really, what's in the best interest of any child is to be able to have a relationship with both of their parents.
Yeah. And love is most important. And that
Yes.
you want your child to feel like you still have a love for their parent. Maybe you don't like them and want to
Mhm.
be with them, but a love that just means that validates you being on earth. I think that's
Yeah.
so important.
And it's important for the child to know that both of their parents love them, that they're not the reason that their parents are not together or they can't get along, whatever. But parents have got to be mindful of the fact that they cannot weaponize their children. You can't, talk about the other parent around.
It's not right.
It's just not right.
I love that you also said you don't know their children, and Judy said
Yes.
it as well. You don't know. So you don't know that spending the night Wednesday nights and every other weekend will throw them totally out of balance. You don't
Right.
know that.
Right.
But your custody agreement, you're going to write that in because that's what's fair.
That's what's fair. But sometimes everything that's in these standard visitations can't work for everybody. That's why it's important if parents can at all possible come to their own agreements. Because then that way you take into consideration, oh, well, they may have this to go to, or they may have that, or it may work for them to spend a night, some nights, 2 or 3 nights a week with the father, that might be different than what a standard. So at any rate, I just think it's important for parents just to be mindful of that. And we hope that we have provided a service and information for you all. If you enjoy watching our show, continue to follow us on Facebook, as well as subscribe on YouTube and listen to the audio podcast if you cannot watch the show. And you can see that or listen to that anywhere you get your podcast. So until next time, we will see you. This was the last show of this season, so we are going to take a little hiatus just from the show. We're going to still probably be doing some tea times here and there, but we will be back in September. So until next time, we'll see you for another episode of Public Opinion. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.